A simple horizontal steam engine. Let's build it. Hi all, my name is Lee and welcome to the channel. So today I'm building a steam engine, just a simple horizontal steam engine. I've actually built one before. I built an oscillating steam engine. This is the prototype version just to make sure it worked. So this is probably the most simple steam engine you can make. The engine I'm making today is a horizontal engine, but it's actually got a separate valve body, which makes it maybe slightly more complicated because in theory you have to play with the timing just to try and get the valve and the piston to work together correctly. So I've downloaded some plans from the internet. I'll leave a link in the description below. But it's got all of the plans. There's both metric and imperial. I'll be going from the metric plans myself because I'm a metric guy. So let's just take a closer look and we'll dive into it to see what we need to do first. So you can see here the basic design, and we've also got a bill of materials on here. Now I'm not actually following the exact bill of materials written on here. I think there's a lot of aluminium involved. I'm just using what I have available. So my valve and cylinder body is going to be made out of a piece of steel. I'm going to need to cut and mill this into shape for each of those. I've got a piece of steel for the flywheel. My body, the actual main frame that everything connects to, is actually a piece of steel as well. The issue with this is it's actually a millimetre less than the specified width on here. So they specify a piece of aluminium for 6 millimeters. I've got a piece of steel at 5 millimeters. So the only difference is I probably just need to increase the size of some of the spacers around the crank. But that should be fine. So I'm going to use this plate steel instead. For the base, I'm just using an old piece of wood that I've cut off. And of course, I've got a selection of steel and brass for the piston and con rods, things like that. So the first issue I found on my new milling machine is I don't have a drill chuck small enough. A lot of the holes call for an M3 thread. So that's a 2.5 millimeter drill. Now, the drill chuck that came with it starts at 3 millimeters, and even then it seems quite loose. So I'm going to have to use an ER32 collet instead. I've actually ordered myself a new drill chuck, a better quality one, and hopefully that will come soon. But for now, the ER32 collet is absolutely fine. So let's jump into the first page and we'll start seeing what we're going to do first. So we need to make the base first. So for me, that's a piece of wood and a piece of steel. The main thing we need to do are just drill and tap the holes in here. Now, the only one I need to watch out for, there is a single hole. That is just a 3 millimeter diameter hole rather than a 2.5 mil for a tap. So let's get this base cut out and I'll start doing some marking up because I want to keep practicing marking the work before I make any cuts, just to make it common practice. And let's get into it. So the main frame calls for 50 mil by 6 mil thick by 115 millimeter piece of aluminium. Like I say, this one's 5 millimeter thick. But what I will do is I will cut this down to size. So it's not 115. It looks like it's around 119. So I just need to take a few mil off of there. The best tool I have is my milling machine. I don't really have a proper cutter to do that easily. So I'll just mill that off. It's only a few millimeters. That should be fine. The next thing I need to do is I'll just cut this piece of wood. I might create a very thin slot in there, so just route out a slot to put the steel in. And then I'll just clean it up a bit and we can make sure the frame fits into the base nicely. On the bottom of the frame, I'm going to have to cut some M3 holes and I might use some tap head bolts screws, just to drill the base into the wood like that. But we can do that later. The first thing to do is let's just get these to size. So I've put the plate steel in there. I just need to touch off, reset the draw and take about 4 millimeters off. I'm not sure how many passes it will take. I'll see the strength of the end mill So let's do it. So that's about 115 mil. You don't have to be too accurate with this. So as long as I get the holes the correct distance apart from each other, it doesn't matter specifically where they are in there as long as they're the same distance apart from each other. And also I believe the plans for this, in theory, if you had the correct size stock, you could actually just make this with a drill press. You don't specifically need a milling machine or anything. But I want to try and get it as accurate as possible. So that's the first piece done. The next piece, I'm just going to cut a piece of wood for the base just to match this. So let's go and do that now. So that's the base done. All looks pretty good. Nice dimensions. I may cut a slot in here, but I'll decide that later. But for now, let's start marking this up and getting the right dimensions on there, and we'll go over to the mill and do some drilling and tapping. First, a 10mm hole, 8mm in and 10mm down. These holes at the top here, 3mm down from the top edge. So hopefully you can see I've copied these dimensions. I've marked it out. Really, the marking out as if I was going to hand drill. I'm actually going to use the Dro to do all these, but this is good practice for me. So hopefully you can see that on there. So let's jump on the mill and start drilling out some holes. So I've already found the edge and lined up the 10mm hole first on this edge. The main thing I needed to check is make sure your parallels are out of the way, because you don't want to accidentally drill into them. So this is all looking pretty good. It's clamped nice and hard. So I'll make my first 10mm cut. Then the next thing I need to do is move over to do a 3mm diameter hole. And then the next four are 2.5mm because they're M3 threads. So let's start that now. So I've decided before I start drilling the smaller holes, because they're so thin, I'm actually going to use a centre drill first just to get them started. So let's do that now. So we'll do the single 3mm diameter hole first, and then we'll do the next four 2.5mm for the tap. So I almost missed a hole right on the top edge that actually goes in to the 10mm diameter hole. So I'm just going to put that one in. That needs to be 2.5mm for an M3 tap as well. So let's do that now. Right, so let's tap these holes. M3 tap, power tap with the drill. I've already done a test one, it worked okay, and I'll just use some WD-40 for a lubrication. So I'm going to use this as the top. So I'm going to flip it over to drill the holes in the bottom, and I'm probably going to countersink these in there, but first I need to find the center line. The distance apart of the screws, this isn't important. What is important is it lines up with the base correctly. So let's get a center line in. So I'm just going to drill a small countersink 6mm hole first, and then I'll finish off with a 3mm. So now I'm just going to mark the base. It was 2cm or 20mm and 80mm on the wood. So I'll replicate that on here, and then we'll drill out the 2.5mm holes and then tap them with an M3 tap. Okay, so because I'm tapping blind holes, I don't want to go too far and snap the tap. So I've actually made these holes just over 15mm deep, which is actually slightly longer than the thread on the tap. So, and I've also set the clutch down a little bit just to make sure I don't snap this in one of the holes. So let's just give it a go. I'll make sure I stop before the end of this thread and everything should be fine. So they seem to work out fine and they look good. Just a quick test just to make sure. Yep, great thread. So that's the base and frame complete. So let's just screw these together and see what it looks like. So I think that's looking really good. Really pleased with that. All the tapped holes work nicely, no mistakes, all to dimension. I think this is a really good start. So that's the first part of the build done, the base and the frame. It's turned out really nicely. I'm going to bring this video to an end, but the next video will start on the next piece, which will be the cylinder and valve body. So we'll have to jump on the milling machine and prep the stock for that. But for now, I hope you enjoyed what you see. If you do, please click the like button. It helps me out. I do this just for fun, and it is quite motivating when people like and comment on my videos. So if you do like what you see, please click the like button, consider subscribing. But thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you very soon for the next one. Cheers.